Hi everyone, my name is Ben Rankin, and this is a track by track of my brand new album, Welcome to My House. Lifeline was the first song that I wrote for this record. It's obviously the first song and the first single. When I finished Diary of a Tortured Mind, I knew I wanted to make another metal album, but knew that I wanted it to be more straightforward, no concepts, no characters, no overarching storylines. So I wrote the beginning drum part in a drum lesson in high school. Sorry, Dave. I then knew that that was the song that I wanted to open the album, and it just kind of sets the tone for what the album's going to sound like. If I remember correctly, Nobody and Nothing was one of the last songs that I wrote for the album. I wrote it about those times where you just can't help but feel anything some days, and you think that no one's on your side to give a helping hand to. The guitar solo is probably one of my favorite moments on the album, and it was also a massive pain in the ass to record. I usually like to record solos on the fly, and I'm very self-conscious about my guitar playing, so I don't do solos that often. But looking back on it, that bridge feels very incomplete without it. Agoraphobic is probably one of my favorite songs on the album. It was definitely the funnest one to make. For those that don't know, agoraphobia is a type of social anxiety, which is essentially avoidance of certain environments due to paralyzing fear. It can often lead to panic attacks, and some individuals will find that their home is the only place that they feel safe in. As a result, people with agoraphobia won't leave their homes for days, weeks, months, and even years. So I wrote it about someone who just refuses to leave their house just because that's the only place that they sort of feel safe in. There are lines in there like, I'm only happy when the rain comes down, when it floods my mind, and I'm only happy when it's dark, when the lights go off. My friend Stella Eve is on this track, and I honestly think she absolutely makes this song. She came over one day and I gave her ideas, she gave me ideas, and it just made for a very smooth, fast process. I honestly think we were done within an hour. Stella, if you're watching this, thanks for carrying the song. Up next is Heaven is Dead and Hell is for the Weak. A question that I ponder a little bit too much is the big question of where do we go when we die? I know that some religions have different answers, whether it be with heaven or reincarnation, etc. So I wanted to kind of explore that topic. After a while, it kind of just evolved into, well, I was taught this when I was in school, and now this is what I believe now. So here's what I think. This song is not anti-religion at all. Obviously, believe what you believe, but it was sort of a fun topic that I wanted to write about. Before I wrote any lyrics, I wrote the line into a notebook, Heaven is dead and hell is for the weak, having no idea what it meant. And so everything after that was kind of, let's make this line make sense. It's one of my favorite tracks to play live and one that I spent a lot of time on. So yeah, Heaven is dead and hell is for the weak. So the next song is a track called I'll See You in Hell, and this song's working title for like a year and a half was Generation F***ed. Really wanted that to be the title, but I was persuaded otherwise. One of the bands that really inspired some of the tracks on this album is Motionless in White, and more particularly the song Thoughts and Prayers, which was a very in-your-face, heavy, like no-holds-barred type of song. So I wanted to write it about certain people that we breathe the same air as. There are lines directed to anti-vaxxers and, keyboard warriors, people that desperately want their opinions out there. There's even a line directed at those climate protesters that were throwing soup cans at famous paintings, because those videos were coming in left, right, and center. So I just kind of watched that and thought, yeah, you guys can be on the list as well. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. Hanging On by a Thread is another Motionless-inspired one. It's one that kind of explores the topic of mental health just in general. I've had people, when I've, checked in on them sometimes, they say, I'm hanging on by a thread. And obviously that's very heartbreaking to hear, but that kind of is what inspired me to write this song. It's essentially my way of saying that there's definitely people out there that have the same issues as you and that you're not alone. This song has some of my favorite riffs on the album and is what I consider one of the most technical songs on the album. It was definitely a fun one to record. It's a fun one just to play in general. Alone is probably the saddest song on the album for me. I wrote it when I was in year 12 and it was a completely fictional story. Since I wrote that song, I've had friends close to me that have passed away. And for a while, I didn't want to touch the song. I didn't want to listen to it. I wanted nothing to do with it. But as I started working on it again, it became more therapeutic. And I just kept working on it more and more and more until it eventually became something that I'm the most proud of out of anything that I've released. I was screaming a bit differently than the other songs on the album because it was one of those only times where I was prioritizing emotion over technique. Not the best option to do 100% of the time, but it's what I really wanted to do, and I feel like that's what the song needed. The song has a completely different meaning for me now, and it's now a tribute to both my friends and the people that are no longer with us. I'm pretty sure Permanence was the last song I wrote for the album, and I wrote it kind of by accident. I was trying to learn a song that was in a tuning that I had never used before. It's some open tuning, even I don't even know what it is. After a while, I was, playing around with some chords, and the song just kind of came to me instantly. I'm pretty sure I finished a rough version of it in around 20 minutes. It's the most experimental song on the album. It doesn't have any lyrics. It's an instrumental. But yeah, it's something that I never thought I could make, so Permanence. Asylum is probably the darkest song on the record. It's a song about two people that are clearly not good for each other. The relationship is damaged beyond repair, but for some reason, they can't seem to find their way out of it, and they don't have the courage to leave. By the end of the song, they decide that, well, even though we're dead inside and this is what our lives have become, you're the only one for me. So essentially, no one benefits, but they just don't really have the courage to leave. It's one of those broody songs lyrically, but still wanted it to be pretty heavy, so there's Asylum. I didn't realize this until later, but I'll Never Find Anyone Else is sort of like a part 2 to Asylum. Only this time, these two can't leave because they know that they're the best that they'll ever get. And as the title suggests, they'll never find anyone else. This was the first song I wrote in around 4 months at the time before I started working on the album again. The music and lyrics sort of hit me instantly, and from then on, I knew that I wanted it to be on the album. So I wrote Insomniac on the same day that I wrote I'll See You in Hell because they're both in the same tuning. They're in drop C sharp. Insomniac is a song about someone who is at their wit's end, and I use insomnia as sort of a metaphor for this individual wishing that their suffering and their pain would just end. This probably has my favorite chorus on the album. It was stuck in my head for a very long time, and I know that sounds very egotistical. And it definitely has my favorite screaming performance on the album. It's another one that's musically heavy and emotionally heavy at the same time. So, Insomniac, Dead Man Walking. So, Can't Keep Holding On is the last song on the album, and I had a little bit of different inspiration for this one. I was listening a lot to Lewis Capaldi at the time, mainly the song How I'm Feeling Now, which closes out his last album. Whilst Welcome to My House does have its softer moments, I consider Can't Keep Holding On to be the main ballad of the album. It's a song about those times where you just can't help but fake a smile, trying to live up to everyone's expectations of you, and it gets to a point where you wonder and you think to yourself, how long can I keep this up? It's definitely up there in my favorite acoustic songs, and personally, I think it's a great way to end an album like Welcome to My House. Thanks for watching. The album is out now. Welcome to My House, out everywhere where you stream your music. Thanks.